There's another funny story that involved Peter Johnson, Johno, and myself. We're out in the jungle. It was very thick, and we went into a platoon harbour position, and our sergeant, Bevan Stokes, sent Johno and myself out on a listening post, only a couple of 100 yards out from the platoon, and we went out, and there was a sort of a big tree there and a bit of a ditch behind it, and I set the M60 up on that, and was down in the hole, and Johno was there with me with his rifle and whatever. Anyway, we're just keeping an eye out, and Johno wanted to go to the toilet, so he just, without taking his rifle, he just moved a couple of yards back into the jungle, back in the direction of where the platoon was. And I heard this noise out the front, and I looked, and there was a bloke dressed in black coming straight towards me, but he was coming backwards. He had his back face to me. He had his arm up in the air, and he was sort of pulling, waving his arm, sort of as if he was waving up people following him. As I say, it was very thick jungle, but a bit of a clearing between me and him. And when I say a bit of a clearing, it wouldn't mean more than 5 yards wide, but there was a bit of a clearing, and it was real thick he was coming out of. I couldn't even see into it, except I could see him. And I couldn't call out to Johno, so I picked up the M60. I don't know what made me do it, but instead of staying in the bit of a ditch behind the tree, I walked out, and I got within about a yard of him, and I said, "Stop." And he turned around and he looked at me and he said, "Stop." And he kept walking towards me. And I was walking backwards. And he walked right up onto the gun barrel. And I said, "Halt." And he said, "Halt." And I said, "Yeah, stop." And he said, "Stop." "Halt." And by this time I was back, and I'd come back up against the tree, and I started to take up the trigger. I was going to blow him away. I mean, I had no option, because he was leaning over the gun. He had a terrified look on his face, but everything I said, he said. So I was just about to squeeze, and Johno dived out of the bush from the side and tackled him onto the ground and pinned him on the ground. Anyway, I walked over, and I mean, when I say walked over, it was only 2 yards, and I put the gun against his head while he was laying on the ground, and I said to Johno, "Go and get Punchy Stokes, Bevan Stokes, the sergeant," because he could speak Vietnamese. So Johno took off, and I just stood there, and I kept watching though where he'd come from, because I didn't know how many people he had with him or what. you know, it was only a couple of minutes, and Johno was back with Punchy, Bevan. And anyway, Punchy had a yarn to this bloke, and he said, no, he said, he's a buffalo boy. He said, he's not an enemy. He said, he's only a buffalo boy. He said, he's got his buffaloes there, and he's trying to get him to come through the thing, through the jungle. And, you know, I felt a bit sorry, but I thought, well, you know, and I said to Punchy, I said, we were told there was no enemy, no friendlies. Anybody out there was enemy. And I was going to blow him away. And I explained to Punchy what happened. He said he shouldn't be here. He said, but he didn't get the message. They dropped messages out of the planes and that. But he said he didn't get the message, and he was in the wrong area. He said he's definitely not nothing to worry about. Anyway, by this time, this bloke had got hold of a rope. That's what he was trying to pull, that I could see. I couldn't see the rope. But he led these two big buffaloes out of the water buffaloes out of the jungle. They eventually smashed their way out into that bit of a clearing. And, you know, I gave this young fellow a smoke, and Johno thought he'd really please him, you know, so he pulled a camera out of his pouch and held it up, and this bloke put a big smile on his face. And when Johno fired the camera, the flash, the buffaloes took off. And the last we seen was the buffaloes disappear and dragging this bloke. It was another funny story, but again, it wasn't funny at the time, but it was funny after. I'll leave it there.